In your opinion, how important do you see authenticity in the development of one's game? So this is a question the community gave me. For example, routines, pickup lines, and various other PUA techniques can be like putting on a mask, which is referred to as technical game, whereas natural game involves using your own spontaneous ideas, like through situational openers, which are original.
Yeah, that's a good question. Again, I'm not, my expertise is more in mental health than game. I cannot give like dating advice or suggest what is good help people in their efforts uh, to meet romantic partners. Um, there is a concept in psychology called like an authentic self and an inauthentic self, and some research shows that the more you can live authentically, the better it is for your mental health. But then on the other hand, in psychology, there's the most evidence-based talking therapy is called cognitive behavioral therapy. And if you have depression, anxiety, you'll see a psychologist who will try and help you with usually with cognitive behavioral therapy. And part of what they do is to try and shift your mentality and shift your repertoire of techniques that you use in everyday life so that they become more positive and more um, engaging to the outside world in a way. So, for example, if you go and see a psychologist and you have social phobia or social anxiety, one thing that a psychologist might say to you is just go to sit at a bus stop and say to the person at the bus stop, "Excuse me, do you have the time?" It's an old-fashioned um, technique because everybody has cell phones now, which tells the time. But maybe say, "Do you know when the next bus is?" Or and that you doing that would be terrifying to somebody with social phobia, but it's a first step. And then you work your way up, and then you get to a point where, look, you're terrified of doing a job interview, but we went from asking somebody the time at a bus stop, and then the next step was to try and follow up with a question like, "Oh, the weather's nice today, isn't it?" And to try and start a conversation. And then you can go from being someone who's terrified of social interaction to enjoying social interaction. So I think any recognition any progress in life comes from recognizing that maybe you have deficits in some areas of your social behavior and your social repertoire, and then identifying what those deficits are, and then practicing ways that you can overcome those deficits in role plays or in your mind or in that CBT example I gave, and then working on that to improve it. So the idea of like canned lions in pickup artistry, which they've been ridiculed, but mystery has been ridiculed by some people, or which is fine. Anyone who's puts yourself in the public domain will get ridiculed. But in cognitive behavioral therapy and in psychology, psychologists are often telling people to have canned lines. If you do media training, I've done media training, for example, media training will say, have a canned line. If a journalist asks you a tough question, to have a line which is like, thank you, that's a very good question. I need a little bit of time to respond to that. So having these kind of scripts, these templates in life, to me, that's comes from psychological science. And if there are people in the community who are uh, offering this as a solution, depends on the content, depends on the circumstances, but that's how many people succeed, politicians, journalists, salesmen. You have to be able to think on your feet and you have to have a repertoire of responses available. So that would be my answer to that question.
Hmm, interesting.